KFUG Community Radio. Good morning. It is 10:21. Paul Koritz with you, along with Mike Thornton, Community Service, and we are graced with the presence, by the presence, graced with, of, by, pick your preposition. Harbormaster Tim Petrick coming in this morning to catch us up on all things Crescent City Harbor. How you doing, Tim?
Great. Yeah, great. We're doing really good down at the harbor.
Yeah, all the harbor stuff's taken care of?
Yeah.
Still water in it.
All done, we finished all of our plans. We're good to go.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for coming by.
Brickings just fell into the sea. It's all over.
I don't care about them.
Well, Tim, thank you for joining us on Community Service again. We really appreciate you coming
great to be
in.
Here. Yeah.
So, we've kind of been through this latest iteration or, development process of moving forward with what's happening at the harbor. So, where do things stand now? I know there's been some leases signed, and what's the nature of that, and where do things stand now?
Yeah, so we agreed to leases on the Bayside and RV Redwood Harbor Village RV parks with the developer Renewable Energy Capital. Those leases are now in a due diligence period. The due diligence period is a minimum of 6 months, or I should say a maximum of 6 months, and can't end. The due diligence can't end until we approve of a resident relocation plan that he presents to us. So the residents he'll begin working with residents to develop a plan for relocation of those residents that want to or are able to be relocated. I know he's open to some residents staying during the construction phase, but that'll be between Alex and them.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll present that plan to us, and as long as we're the Harbor Board is confident that it meets all of our legal requirements under the Relocation Act, and that we're actually doing the right thing by our tenants, then we'll allow Alex to come out of the due diligence period and begin construction and begin revitalizing the parks.
So I wanted to ask you about that, and I don't expect you to go through all of the legal aspects of relocation law and all of that, but when you say do the right thing, right? In general, that's kind of like a spirit of the law kind of thing, right? What's the sense of the board when it comes to that? I guess what I'm asking is, what does do the right thing mean?
Well, and doing the right thing means something different for each tenant.
Sure,
I think.
I get it.
And there's the law, and then there's what people deserve and what you can do for them, and a lot of times they're not the same. The law requires certain things. We hired a specialist to tell us what those certain things are, because it's really complicated what we can and can't do, and what the amount of relocation fees or whatever, what constitutes equal housing. It's really complicated the way the law is written, but basically the feeling of the board is they don't want anybody to feel like they've gone down in this process. They want everyone to feel like they've come out of it ahead. And so, we've got a lot of tenants that are living in, frankly, unlivable living situations.
Definitely. Substandard at least.
And, if we can help relocate them into cleaner, healthier living situation, something that is going to improve their quality of life, then I think that is, the thought process of the board is how can we make things better for the people that are living there. And of course, we're going to have some tenants who say, my life's great living right here on the water, and I don't want to go anywhere. And that's something that they're going to have to work out with Alex. We do know it is not a legal tenancy to be there. It's not zoned for tenancy. but we are going to work with people to try to figure out the best situation for them individually.
Well, a couple of questions come to mind. Just let me remind the listeners that we're speaking with Crescent City Harbormaster Tim Petrick. You are tuned to KFUGLP Crescent City.
Move your mic.
Oh, move my mic, okay? Do something with it?
Much better.
Is that better? Okay, yes. So we are tuned to a now new and improved KFUGLP Crescent City with Crescent City Harbormaster Tim Petrick. So, one of the things that I was reading in Jessica St. Andrews' reportage on the meeting is that the residents, the current residents, are seeking some sort of representation regarding all of this. And it sounds like Alex Lemus is going to be responsible for providing that, or at least that the Harbor District isn't going to provide that. Am I correct in that?
Yes, to an extent. We've spoke with our council and with relocation specialists, and they basically told us that if we were to provide an ombudsman or legal representation or something, it would really constitute a conflict of interest, and so we are looking into being able to provide some informational meetings to try to make sure that our tenants know what their rights are before they go into meetings with Alex. Alex, I know, is working with True North to set up these meetings as well. I don't know what the status of that is yet because we just finished the leases, and obviously he couldn't do anything until the leases were signed. So it's definitely a tricky situation how we're going to provide some representation for him. But I think the Harbor's responsibility right now is going to be, we're going to try to get as much information to the tenants as possible.
So I have another question, which is maybe a broader scope on all of this. So, at least as I understand it, the redevelopment of the RV parks is part of a bigger project, which is the redevelopment and renovation of the entire harbor, right? Which, ideally, once completed, is going to make the harbor, even more of a central focus of the community than it already is. And ideally, a generator, an economic engine of the community. What role, if any, are the other governmental entities playing in helping to make this happen? Ensuring that the residents find, a decent place. In other words, to try and help this development come to as full, profitable, ethical, project as possible, right?
Yeah, that's a great question because it definitely requires any successful project of this size is going to require work together with all the agencies, and I think that we've had a lot of support from the county and a lot of support from the city for our project. We haven't really defined a role for them in the project itself, but we've been working closely with like Eric Weir at the city to make sure that our projects will run smoothly into the Front Street project. I know I've had discussions with Megan Miller at Housing and Community Development about what we can do as far as the housing situation. I do believe that REC is exploring building some low-income housing in the area, as well as purchasing some other properties in the area to try to build their footprint in a way that they can help create housing for workers and for more amenity to be brought into the harbor project. So I do think there's definitely going to be a lot of work together with the county and the city. I feel like we're on the same page with the ideas. I just recently went to a community visioning workshop that was put on by Barry Strategy that was hired by the city. And it was great, seeing people from every agency you can think of here. I mean, there was the California Endowment, there was the school districts, there was, the county, every district of the county, and every, a bunch of people from the city and city council were there. And I think, it was a lot of people pulling in the same direction for the future of Crescent City. And it was really exciting to see the positive outlook there.
Well, I want to take a step back, and we plan to have Alex Lemus of REC on as well. So I'll ask him more about this, but I just want to clarify what I thought I heard you say, is that REC is doing the development project right now related to the RV parks, and then later for the entire harbor is also going to be engaging in doing some development of affordable housing in the community beyond that? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, I don't know what his involvement in the affordable housing project is going to be. I know he's been in discussions with some other developers and some builders, and they've looked at other properties and things to see what the potential is. But he understands that developing the harbor doesn't just mean developing the harbor. Right now, I've got harbor staff that haven't been able to find a place to live, and so he understands that part of developing the harbor is developing housing in the area. And so you've got to take a more holistic approach and look at the entire project as Crescent City and Del Norte in general, and not just the harbor. So.
And this is something that has active buy-in from the city and the county?
Yes. Cool. Yeah.
Because one of the things that happened relatively recently was very popular pharmacist in town had to move because he couldn't find a place. And as a pharmacist and couldn't find an affordable place to live. And sounds very fortuitous because the county is in the process of developing its 8-year, I guess, or 10-year housing element, and everyone recognizes that there's a lack of housing, especially affordable housing in the community. So it's this very interesting development.
Yeah, I mean, we just moved. Personally, we just moved, and my rent nearly doubled in the course of a year. So definitely the housing issue is a huge problem in the area, and it's something that needs to be addressed. We've got a ton of houses in the market that have been pulled out of rental market for vacation rentals. It's and a lot of them are not. Okay, you see the ones on Pebble Beach Drive, that makes sense.
Sure,
but you've got a lot of houses that are just normal houses that would normally be rented to a single family, and those are vacation rentals now. And so that's something that needs to be addressed, I think, as well. A lot of communities this size have a boom in vacation rentals, and then they need to put a cap on the number so that it doesn't overtake the area. And so that may be something that the city council needs to address, or the county needs to start to discuss as well.
That actually came up as part of the discussion of the housing element, the issue of so many Airbnbs, vacation rentals. It sounds like that's a real problem. And I mean, I'm hearing you say that from your experience, it's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, we've got over I think 175 registered vacation rentals in the Crescent City area, and if you think about the amount of people looking for housing, if you put even half of those back into the market, you wind up with much less of an issue here.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's a lot to that. That at the same time, there's clearly a market for the vacation rentals, and so that's something that plays into our plans for the harbor. Is if we can develop vacation rental cabins in a portion of what was RV park, there's a huge market for it, and we can make money off of that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not asking you to address this because it's a much bigger issue, but yeah, we always get to this point where it's like, well, there's a market, but is that good for the community, right? And I don't mean specifically having some short-term rentals at the harbor, just having a huge part of the housing stock in the community tied up as short-term rentals. I used to live and work in South Lake Tahoe. 50% of the homes there were like second homes and vacation rentals. Yeah. So, and that's a huge problem for any kind of community. They were actually having to house casino workers in like tent cities, things like that, you know. So Tim, what's the big vision for the harbor?
Excuse me. The big vision for the harbor is it's a combination of a working harbor and a place for families and tourists to stop and enjoy our natural beauty and natural amenity here. And I think there's been a lot of discussion in the public about how we want to just destroy the commercial fishing industry and put in Cannery Row, which I think is hilarious because Cannery Row and Monterey are incredibly successful and
very, very different,
very different from here. But the fact of the matter is commercial fishing is an essential part of this town, and it's an essential part of bringing people to this town. And so everything that we've been planning has been based around a commercial fishing zone in the harbor. And basically what we've talked about doing is moving the commercial fishing, a little bit within the harbor and improving it and making state-of-the-art, clean, usable fish processing that can advance the commercial fishing industry, but then also be a draw for the public. Because people love watching the fish come off the boats. They love watching the working boats. And then you've got a whole bunch of other harbor that's completely untapped at the moment. And if we can make money off of that by making it a more tourist or public-facing situation, then we can support the commercial fishermen with that. And so that's kind of the major, 10,000-foot view of it is if we can involve the fishermen in part of that, we can create, something that's for families and for visitors to access, South Beach and access, our amazing, rock fishing and charter fishing, whale watching. I know we've got a few charter boats. We should have a lot more charter boats. They're completely booked, the ones we have. And there's no reason we shouldn't have more of that. And so if we can build the amenity, we can use the money that we can make from the tourists to support the commercial fishermen and keep their rates down and really build something nice for them to work with.
So it leads me to a couple of questions. One is, what's the buy-in on all of this from the commercial fishing community, the local fishing community here?
When they understand what we're trying to do, they love the idea. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there.
And I want to get to that too.
It's amazing how strong the game of telephone is in this community. Definitely, information goes from one side to the other of town very quickly, and loses, most of the fact along the way. But the commercial fishermen, when I explain what we want to do for them and how we can improve the situation, they're very much in support of it.
Is the harbor more vibrant than most of us realize?
I think it is. It's got sort of a dirty industrial look for a lot of it, and I don't think that shows its true colors. And so that's one of those things that we're trying to work on. I've just gotten the asbestos inspections on a couple of buildings so that we can tear them down. That way we can start to improve some of the area and make it look more inviting. And I think a big thing was bringing Farmers Market back. Farmers Market will be back at the harbor this summer. We have an event this weekend. We have an Easter egg hunt this weekend for families on Sunday, 1 to 3. And that's got a bunch of community sponsors. And I think, we're going to be able to start showing the public how vibrant the harbor actually is. We've got 3 of the busiest restaurants in the entire area, in the harbor area, between Fisherman's, the Chart Room, and Jambalaya, and then Crescent Seafood as well. So it's definitely a heart of the community, and I think people just don't realize it yet. And we're gonna prove that.
We're talking with Tim Petrick, who is the Harbormaster for the Crescent City Harbor. You are tuned to KFU GLP Crescent City, 101.1 on your FM radio dial worldwide, kfugradio.org. This is community service. So, Tim, let's talk about bumps, humps, obstacles, and mis and disinformation if we can, okay? People who listen to this, these are my words, not your words. Let me just make that very clear. People who listen to this radio station know how I feel about Roger Gitlin and the negative impact that I think he continues and purposefully engages in to inject division and poison into this community. And just for little more than what I can tell is just simply his own self-aggrandizement. So, but he's been one of the people who's been very vocal at these meetings that have been going on. How does that kind of thing impact the ability to move forward with a project like this?
Well, I'll start by saying I think it's clear that in his mind, Roger cares deeply about the community. While I often don't agree with his stances, I do think that he cares in his own way, and that's why he does what he does. I do think that we've got a significant number of people in the area who are against a lot of the changes that we've discussed making. Not because they're against change and not because they don't think it'll work, but because they've spent a lot of years here watching things fail for a variety of reasons. We've had a lot of businesses try to come in and make it and not be able to make it. And so in their experience, all they can picture is how a business can fail here, right, not how a business can succeed. And so I think you have this sort of negative outlook on like, oh, that'd be a great idea, but it'll never work.
Right, because it can't possibly work here.
Yeah, and I think you need to... It's very difficult for those people to see how things might have changed over the last few years or how this might be a different situation. One of the discussions I've had with Alex multiple times is, this is going to be an if you build it, they will come situation. And you're going to have to deal with, losses or break evens possibly for a couple of years. And you're going to have to get through that before it really becomes a thriving, business where you're going to make a ton of money. And most businesses can't last that long. Right. And I think that's part of the problem that people have had in the past is they're capitalized to start and make it a year, but maybe not 2 years. And what they need is 2 or 3 years to really become successful. And so, and I think you saw that a little bit with House of Jambalaya. Their first year was in the pandemic, and it was rough. but they were able to make it through that year, and now the line's out the door, and so that's sort of what you have to deal with this negative sort of connotation of like, it'll never work, you can't do that. Well, it didn't. Just because it didn't in the past doesn't mean it won't now.
So let me ask you first this question. So has Alex Lemus and Renewable Energy Capital demonstrated to the Harbor District and the Commission and yourself that the company has both the resources and the will to follow a long-term project like this through?
Yes, he has. As far as giving us a demonstration of his financials, I've had the discussions with him. It's in the lease that he will show us. Of course, that's privilege. That won't be public information. It'll go through our law firm. Yeah, he has the finances, he has the backing, and he has the will to do it. I mean, he has stuck with this for a solid 2 years. And he's now making other investments in the community. He's looking at buying a house for himself up here. So I do believe that Alex is in this for the long haul and that he is going to see this through.
So the other part of kind of the bumps and the potholes has been this other company that came in on this process, OnSite Development. Can you explain what happened? I mean, with all of that, because here's where I'm coming from with it, right? Okay. You guys had an RFP. The RFP went out. The date for responses ended. You had somebody who responded to that. They responded in a way that y'all felt was worth moving forward with. Mm-hmm. In the process of doing all of that, and then all of a sudden someone else shows up saying, hey, wait a minute, this all has to stop because we want in.
It's funny. One of the commissioners actually compared it to, they said, well, we've hired you. You've got a 4-year contract. We're going to interview this other person and just see what they have to say. Like, obviously, that would be problematic. We discussed it with our attorneys. They read the RFP. They read our responses. They went through the minutes even and saw what the discussion was between the commissioners. And what it came out to is we gave exclusive negotiating rights to Alex for this as part of the RFP. And while we were actively negotiating with him, we could not entertain another proposal. And the other company, I appreciate their interest, but we were 90% of the way, 98% of the way through negotiations with REC, and for us to entertain their proposal, we would have had to break off negotiations and basically write off our relationship with REC, and we weren't in a position to do that.
I'm trying to formulate the question on the fly here, because one of the things that I learned about OnSite is that they had been engaging in conversations with residents of the park. And so, I have no idea. I'm not privy to what any of those conversations were. But, so on the one hand, the contract's moving forward, yet we've got another company that is engaging in conversations with the residents who are understandably concerned and fearful.
Right, right.
So there's that. Did the late involvement of this company ever put the ability to move forward with this project in any kind of jeopardy?
It did not put it in any jeopardy because we have a law firm that is very responsive and has a very deep bench and experts on a lot of different things, and they were able to review it quickly and get back to us before we made a decision that could have put it in jeopardy. One of the interesting things to note about OnSite Development's process was they've never once spoken to the harbor about what we were trying to do. They spoke to the tenants. They had all of this set up, and then they showed up to our meeting and basically hijacked the public comment. And that was the entire extent of their discussion with the harbor. So they were making a proposal without ever asking what the harbor was trying to do, which I found that interesting. We'd be the one dropping everything to choose their proposal, and they haven't spoken to us.
well, and let me just, and I certainly, that was a lot of my perspective, looking at it from the outside as well. Though they did at some point request a formal meeting presentation with the harbor, but by that time your lawyers had decided that it wasn't cool to do that.
Correct. Yeah. So when they showed up and took the public comment time to give the bones of a proposal, they asked to be on the next meeting. The Tuesday before the next meeting, they sent an email requesting to be placed on the agenda, and our attorneys had reviewed it at that point, and they got back to me on Wednesday in the day, and on Thursday I let them know that we would not be placing them on the agenda.
So I know I looked around to try to get some more information about on-site development, and I found it challenging. I mean, I did find a website that didn't really seem to be promoting the company as like a major kind of developer. It seemed a lot more small scale to me. And then there was also this, I'm trying to think of the right word. I'm not trying to be pejorative, right? Okay. There was this representation that there had been a big project somewhere, like in Nashville, Tennessee, which I couldn't find anything that was obvious that put on site with that. Am I missing something, or
I did?
Yeah, I guess. Am I missing something? That's the question. Yeah.
While I was waiting for our attorneys to give me a decision, I decided to do some due diligence on my own, in case the attorneys said we should consider their proposal. And I agree with your assessment. I was unable to find much in the way of information. The information I did find didn't suggest that they were a major development company. That's not to say that they haven't done major development, but I couldn't find anything that supported their statements of that.
And it seems to me in some ways, I mean, the more I thought about it, in some ways that's all kind of irrelevant anyway, because a contract was already in.
Exactly. And like I told them in the email, and also when they came to our meeting, please, we'd be happy to entertain you as a potential developer for other projects. So please keep an eye out for our RFPs, and we'll see, if there's something else in the harbor that makes sense for you guys to work on. But, that's going to be a separate process. This process was already in motion and couldn't be stopped.
We're speaking with Tim Petrick, Crescent City Harbormaster. You're tuned to KFUG LP. We're not getting ready to talk about the Halloween party. That's a different
I have a mic again.
Oh, you do have a
Yes.
mic again. Okay.
I've been sitting here holding wires and trying to keep the
I
hum
know
at
you
bay.
have, and I know you've been using your own bioelectrics to try and
Really, I'm grounding. I'm grounding
managing
things. I want to break in before we
Please.
step away from the on-site stuff because I spent a lot of time as well. We were sitting here on the air looking at this beautiful railroad station that's been changed into something, Union Station in Nashville. It's absolutely wonderful. And then reading what the email that I'd seen that where basically it seemed like the representative from OnSite here in Del Norte who came out here was essentially just taking credit for this multi-million-dollar restoration job. And I'm just curious, and I know there's nothing you can add to this. It's just I want to know that story. I want to know who these people are and how they operate in this way and expect any kind of success. What's their real motivation? I don't know. And I'm not asking you to speculate on a hypothesis. It just seems like a really interesting sort of thing to have happened right in the middle of all this.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say on that is I saw those pictures of Union Station Hotel in Nashville.
And it was restored.
Yeah.
I found other corroborating, history of its restoration.
Yeah, exactly. I looked it up. I saw the restoration information, and I saw the ownership is Southwest Value Partners. I called and spoke with them, asking about who did the restoration, and they, their response to me was they didn't know OnSite Development or Jim Fry. So, okay. That's all I can speak to on that.
Yeah,
that's what they told me. It could be that he was a subcontractor.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he installed the sinks in the bathrooms.
Right, or the cabinetry. Right.
Yeah, who knows? But. That was the question that I asked, and that was the response I got. So.
It just seemed like such an interesting sort of if it was a scam in the 21st century to try to get away with that scam. I don't understand how.
Yeah, you can't do that now.
Right.
Yeah,
you can double check stuff.
There might have been a day when you could have shown up with a picture book or something.
Right. We did. Yeah.
But you can't do that now. But one thing I don't want to let go by, and that is if Tim actually starts exhibiting his skill at speculating on hypothesis, then he should be part of shooting from the loop.
Oh no, that's all you need.
That's all you need. For that part of the show, you don't need any facts. In fact, facts are discouraged.
Exactly. Speculation encouraged.
Encouraged. So Tim, what happens next? Now there's some and I think you spoke to this a little bit. There's some short-term issues about finalizing the leases. There's some conditions about anything that costs X amount of money has to be approved by the Harbor District. And what can people be looking forward to in the short to medium term?
So I think in the extreme short term, Alex has been working with True North to set up meetings with the tenants, and I think over the next few months.
And the Harbor District has no part of that.
The Harbor District has no part of that.
Okay.
So over the next few months, he should be able to set up some of those and get moving on that. And during that, he'll be able to present that to the Harbor Board, and we can accept, those relocation issues. You should be looking out for on our agendas when we have some of that workshop information that we'll be able to provide to the tenants. And then the other project that we haven't talked about that Alex signed a lease on, he just finished his due diligence period on what he's calling South Beach RV Resorts, which is the empty lot next to House of Jambalaya. He's going to be starting to put up some sort of decorative soundproofing fencing. There's going to be some plumbing and power going in over there, and landscaping, green-friendly paving will be going in, and that'll be to develop it for this summer season for sort of a high-end sort of RV resort there on the water on that side. So that should happen before this summer.
How many spaces are planned?
It's only going to be about 25 spaces, I think, because they're going to be larger spaces with like a patio area on each one. The designs that we've been discussing have been very, very nice. I think it's going to be a beautiful spot for some nice RVs to come and just park for this parts of the summer. So, as far as the other things happening in the harbor. We do have the Easter egg hunt this weekend, and we have Farmers Market will be starting, I believe, the beginning of June on Saturdays.
Oh, right on.
They've got a huge turnout, it sounds like. They've got 16 more vendors that have already asked more than last year, and I've been getting calls asking who they talk to, so they're going to have even more than that. It's going to be
a really
big.
popular venue too. The change has been really nice, getting everybody out to the
it worked out really, really well last year, and so we're looking forward to that. And then the Harbor District, we hired a grant writer. We've submitted the first couple of grants for infrastructure improvements. We're going to be submitting for probably over $50 million worth of infrastructure grants. So, hopefully we can get some of that money and we can start, improving some of the docks, the seawalls around the harbor. And, we've got a lot of big things planned. Everything takes time, unfortunately, and it all takes money. But these leases represent almost over $1 million swing in the harbor finances. It's really going to be the thing that starts to put us in a position where we can not only fix deferred maintenance, but start putting money away for bigger projects.
So when we looking at the cost for the, sort of the big vision of the redevelopment of the harbor, what kind of money are we talking about?
So there's a couple of different pieces to that. There's probably $50 million worth of infrastructure issues that we have that are more harbor related. And then the development on land of, businesses, amenities, processors and things like that. That could be anywhere from $10 to $25 million worth of development. We've got in the harbor, we've got seawalls that are bad. We've got piers that need replacing, hoists that need replacing, dredging that needs to happen. There's a lot of really expensive stuff.
Right.
A lot of it is end of life. It's all 50 plus years old, and most of those are designed to go 40 years. So we're really at a point where there's a lot of money to be spent in the harbor, but we're in a good point, in time with the federal infrastructure grants and stuff that are coming out. There's a lot of money out there for that. So hopefully we'll get it.
Yeah, right. That's right. Well, and that's the thing is everybody's writing grants.
That's the new thing.
Funding mechanism.
Before we move on, I just want to tell our listeners you're tuned to KFUGLP Crescent City 101.1 FM online, kfugradio.org, and we're speaking with Harbormaster Tim Petrick.
So realizing that this is flexible, what's the timeline look like?
Well, the on-land development, my discussions with Alex about the things that he's going to do, he really wants to have things done and built in the 5 to 7 year range. He wants this, he really wants this done before he retires, and he's starting to think about retirement. And, he wants this to be kind of his, final crown jewel of a development. As far as the harbor infrastructure goes, if we were to receive the grant funding for a lot of these projects, I would also say that's within a 5-year time frame. I'd love to do it faster. We have some urgent projects, but the permitting timelines on them are a lot of times a year. And then you've got to get, the company that can do the work, the Bellingham Marine or whoever, to actually mobilize and be there with permits ready to go. It's these days with supply chain issues, getting the materials is hard enough. So I would say that there's some of these that won't last 5 years, and so we'll have to, they'll become urgent. But I would say within 5 to 7 years, it'll be an extremely different harbor than what you see today. And hopefully, if all goes to plan, you'll see a considerable amount more commercial fish coming across the dock because of that as well.
So just for clarification, because this is something that I kind of realized myself, the backbone infrastructure part of the harbor, that's not Lemus. Lemus is something else.
No.
Right, okay. More of the RV development, perhaps other types of...
Well, what did you say? On ground development? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, the on land development.
On land,
right, Alex has made he has made offers that we could he could help finance some of in the water infrastructure for us. And I know the Harbor Commission has been reluctant to take that up, and especially now that there's so much federal infrastructure money out there. The preference is that we figure out how to do it ourselves. Even if it's just for the pure reason that the public seems to have adopted this idea that we're selling the harbor to Alex, and that's just not the truth. Our friend Mr. Gitlin specifically said that I have no understanding of how leases work because I said the harbor is still in control of the two lease properties. And I'm pretty sure that's why you do a lease.
As compared to a sale, which you couldn't sell it anyway, right?
And like I said in the meeting before we approved the leases, Alex wasn't really happy with the amount of defaults we kept in the lease. We really do have a lot of potential. He has to be very specific in what he does, or he could lose the lease. Okay. So it left us with a lot of control, and that was the way that we designed it, was so that the harbor isn't going to be hijacked by any one person.
Privatized or something.
Privatized, right? Yeah, the board is still going to have control over what happens there. And that's something Alex was on board with as well, was, he wants us to approve of everything he wants to do. So, it's going to be a very, symbiotic relationship there. And we will continue to have control over what happens.
Wow. I'm sorry. That's really exciting. Just in the next 5 to 7 years, that all of this could come to fruition. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's an aggressive timeline, but it's you can be aggressive with timelines if you've got the money to spend on doing it, and that's the way we're writing the grants. That's the way that Alex is looking at. If he gets it built quickly, then he can start making money on it quickly. And when Alex makes money, the way the leases are written, we make money. So just to kind of go back to something that you said earlier, it sounds like the process for appropriate relocation of the current residents, that's going to be months. That's what I think it is. Yeah, it's definitely going to take time, and the approval of the lease and allowing Alex to move forward is not based upon them being actually relocated. It's based upon us approving the relocation plan. So Alex could potentially come to the board with a plan that says, look, I'm going to allow people to live here on site for the next year while I start doing things. And on the other hand, we're going to be working with housing and community development to build this or that and create this space for them that is what they want. And then we will move them. And that would be an acceptable relocation plan to the board or something along those lines. So they could, this is not like, oh, tomorrow you need to move. Right. This is a long-term plan. It's not, it's not a short-term plan. We are going to make sure that in the long term, people come up, and things don't get worse for anybody. And so that's really the goal there.
And then for me, the final question is, as you stated, I mean, some of these things, whether they're proprietary kind of contract negotiations and those kinds of things, understandably are not, kind of part of the public record. And then you have issues related to the privacy of the residents, which, I mean, protecting their privacy and all of that is important as well. And at the same time, what's in place for the community to feel assured that there is also appropriate transparency with all of this as things move forward?
The transparency is really difficult because we'd like to share everything, but like you said, we need to protect the privacy of our tenants. We need to protect the privacy of their finances and whatnot. And so that's all very difficult to find the delicate balance of what can be put out and what can't be put out transparently. I do think that there will be some things we can do as far as hiding some of the details that would point to anyone personally, to point out, this is the basic plan, without divulging anything that gives away who it's for. But I think we're going to have to see what Alex comes back to us with as a plan before we can even figure out what is going to be able to be hidden and what needs to be transparent.
Yeah, and I guess I was also thinking perhaps some form of, regular updates of, here's where we are. I don't mean like, here's where we are, here's where things stand, here's what's coming next.
Well, and I do think, based on what the commissioners have said to me, I believe they're going to want regular updates on what Alex has been doing with that. How many people he's met with, how those meetings are going, things like that. I don't know that it's going to be every meeting, but maybe every other meeting we'll have an update of where that situation stands. How many tenants we have at that point. We've had a lot of tenants decide to leave on their own because they don't want to deal with any of this.
How many tenants are left?
I don't have an exact number on
it. Ballpark.
Right around 70. Okay. Yeah. And that's not counting the ones that have received lawful evictions for cause. We are in the process of pursuing approximately 17 evictions through the courts right now that are for cause.
When you say cause, what do you mean?
Rule violations, for the most part. We have not filed any for non-payment because of COVID. We wound up with a bunch of people that would have been evicted a long time ago that we couldn't evict during the eviction moratorium, for abusing the rules. And I think once we get these evictions processed through the court and a few of these people out, that'll take a lot of the stress off of the current tenants as well, because we have a lot of really good tenants. And we have a few that are causing some issues, and so we need to take care of that. It's a long, slow, painful process. Yeah. But this is going to make the harbor better. It's going to make the RV parks better. It's going to make it better for the tenants.
And just to really put a point on it, when you're talking about some 17 evictions, these are cases where there are well documented issues and not what someone might say is like aggressive kind of broken window policing, to find ways to move people out.
We have one of the tenants that we're going through the process with that has, we have documented literally every single rule we have in the rule book for the RV parks has been broken by them.
Wow.
And they've,
Seems like they should get something special for just achieving that.
Right.
But, I'm just
Well, and each of these has been, they've all been issued notices to cure, and those are generally 7-day notices to cure. And
when you say cure,
to fix the problem. And then when they don't fix the problem in 7 days, we issued them whether we could evict them or not over the last couple of years. And then now that we are allowed to evict, we've taken all of those that they did not cure, and we've put those into the filings.
So some of these have been pending for quite some time, it sounds
Correct.
like you're saying.
We have one tenant that was lawfully evicted before the eviction moratorium and didn't leave, and they're still there.
wow.
So
Played that right.
yeah.
They say timing is everything.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, okay. Is there anything that we didn't ask you about today that you wanted to make sure got talked about?
Oh, I just I'd like to remind everyone once again about the Easter egg hunt. I think that's a really good community event that we're bringing forward on Sunday.
Where's it going to be happening?
It's going to be out on the front lawn of the harbor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a good thing for the kids. We're going to have.
I thought you were maybe in the Fashion Blacksmith building or just around the harbor. Really make it something.
Right. Don't touch it.
Your egg is buried under that undredged material.
Right. Yeah. No, we've had Alexander Farms donated a bunch of eggs, and our president Rick Shepard used his commercial kitchen to hard boil them.
Boil them all, huh? Right.
And then Helping Hands and RHS have been decorating them. Stella's Adventures has donated over 1,000 candy-filled eggs, plastic eggs, and the harbor's going to pick up a bunch as well. And there's been talk about maybe a lemonade stand and a few things like that for kids to really get down there and have some fun. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's going to be a great thing for the community. I know they used to do one on Front Street, but we haven't had one in a few years, and so we'll get everybody out, and hopefully we'll have a bunch of kids have a great time.
That's Sunday, 1 to 3, right?
Sunday 1 to 3.
Right on.
Just show up.
Yep.
I think
show up.
Going back to what you began with that 10,000-foot vision, and just when I think about just the potential of from Battery Point all the way around to South Beach, just what Crescent City Harbor could become. It's an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing space, an amazing kind of focal point for the entire community. And I mean, I could just see going down there and spending the day, going for a walk from the lighthouse to South Beach and just cruising through the harbor here.
It really is such an amazing place, and one of the Coastal Commission's main tenets is providing access for the public, and I think everything we've done or that we're planning on doing is with the mindset of how can we better provide access. South Beach is an amazing place for families. I have little kids, and we've been on South Beach, and we've taken them down on the beach inside the harbor there, and it's just such a perfect place to spend the day as a family. And if you put a beach grill in, and some nice clean public restrooms, and some shops and restaurants for the parents to go kind of filter through. We've had a proposal of an oyster bar at the corner where the old crab shack was.
Oh, and, wow.
With a big deck and maybe some live music and things like that. And it's just, you can really picture such a wonderful place to hang out. And then, right in the corner where the harbor office is and stuff, you've got a perfect spot there to really benefit the commercial fishing industry and build a state-of-the-art fish processing facility with a large amount of cold storage, and we can improve the equipment that we could be able to process more shrimp and bottom fish and really expand the types of fish that we could sell through here, and become more than a majority crab port, but a place where we bring in most of California shrimp and most of the, the tuna and the bottom fish, like a lot of the other ports up and down the coast. We could have a lot more poundage come across the docks.
And it seems like you've really worked towards striking a balance between the touristic future and as well as remaining a working port too, a working harbor.
Well, and that's the key, is finding that balance. People love watching boats offload fish.
That's
I
true.
mean, you look at the fish markets in Seattle and,
Right.
the throwing of the salmon and all of that. People love watching the industry. And so you create an interface where the industry can still work at its peak. But people can see it.
Yeah.
And you've found that balance.
Yeah,
and so
that's exciting.
That's the goal.
Yeah, right.
Cool. Jim Petrick, Harbormaster of Crescent City. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. Great talking with you guys.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Tim.